Valerie Bertinelli had spent most of her life under bright lights, sitcom sets, talk show couches, cookbook tours, flashes of cameras that never seemed to blink. But the biggest truths in her life were never lived in front of an audience. They took shape in the quiet moments, during the long nights when grief echoed through empty rooms, when memories of lost love and unfinished chapters pressed against her heart like a weight she could not set down. For years, the world saw her as the smiling actress, the resilient widow, the woman who kept moving forward no matter what storms blew through her world. But behind that image was a deeper, more intimate journey, one that would eventually lead her toward an unexpected connection with writer Mike Goodnough, and toward a truth she had avoided for far too long, that healing does not arrive in applause or headlines. It begins in the courage to be seen as you truly are. Her story does not begin with romance. It begins with grief, the kind that rewrites your identity from the inside out. When Eddie Van Halen passed, the world mourned a legend. Valerie mourned the boy she met when they were both still forming, the young man with restless energy and brilliant fire in his hands, the father of her son, the love she had once believed would last forever, despite distance, time, and every fracture life had carved between them. Their marriage had ended on paper, but not in memory, not in spirit, not in the unique language shared by two people who had built a life together in their most formative years. Losing him was not just losing a partner from the past, it was losing a version of herself that had lived only with him. For a long time after his death, she lived in a quiet kind of survival mode. She smiled through interviews, cooked through heartache, and tried to tell the world and herself that she was okay. But grief is never neat, never linear. It lingers in rooms where laughter once lived, in old photographs tucked inside drawers that won't close all the way, in songs that feel like ghosts placing gentle hands on your shoulder. Valerie carried all of that. The nostalgia, the regret, the tenderness, the ache, and she carried it privately, because for decades, privacy was her armor. She had grown up in front of millions, and somewhere along the line she learned to protect herself by never revealing too much of the fragile interior. But time has a way of reshaping us. The more years passed, the more she began to realize that strength was not about endurance, it was about honesty. The truth she had been afraid to face was that she was still capable of loving again, forgiving herself again, starting again. That realization would not come in one dramatic epiphany. It arrived through small moments of reflection, therapy, journaling, conversations with friends who saw past the actress and into the human being behind the screen. And then, one day, her path crossed with Mike Goodnough. He was not a Hollywood fixture, not another figure carved out of the entertainment machine. He was a writer, thoughtful, introspective, funny in a quiet way rather than loud or performative. He understood vulnerability because he had lived inside it. His words carried the kind of honesty that comes from surviving setbacks, from confronting the parts of life that do not always resolve neatly. When Valerie first read his writing, she felt something she didn't expect, not shock, not infatuation, but recognition. The recognition of another soul who had been cracked open by life and had chosen, instead of bitterness, to search for meaning in the broken spaces. Their connection did not begin with grand gestures or cinematic declarations. It began with conversation, long, winding, deeply human conversation about grief, identity, reinvention, aging, and the strange pressure of becoming a symbol when all you want is to be a person. For years, Valerie had been asked to carry other people's expectations, the America's sweetheart, the devoted wife, the strong ex-wife, the inspirational survivor. With Mike, she no longer felt like she had to perform any version of herself. She could be unfinished. She could be flawed. She could be real. The bold and intimate truth she would one day reveal was not a scandal, not a shocking confession, but something far quieter and far more powerful. She was learning to love herself again and allowing someone new to see the version of her that lived beyond public perception. That truth terrified her at first, because when you have been hurt, when you have lost someone irreplaceable, the thought of opening your heart again feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. Grief trains you to protect yourself from hope. It convinces you that happiness is temporary, that attachment is dangerous, that the safest life is the smallest one. Valerie spent months wrestling with that fear. She questioned whether she was allowed to feel joy again, whether loving again meant betraying the past, whether she was brave enough to risk heartbreak twice in one lifetime. Mike never rushed her. He did not try to step into Eddie's shadow. He honored that part of her life, understood the sacredness of it, and treated her history not as competition, but as context. That mattered more than he could ever know. For the first time, Valerie experienced a kind of companionship that did not demand she erase who she had been or what she had lost. Instead, it allowed her to expand. They shared conversations about aging in the public eye, how women are expected to remain unchanging, how every wrinkle and every emotional shift becomes a headline rather than a personal milestone. Valerie had spent too long apologizing for simply being human. Mike encouraged her to embrace imperfection as something beautiful rather than shameful. In his presence, vulnerability did not feel like exposure, it felt like liberation. Slowly, the walls she had built around her heart began to soften. The truth she would eventually share with the world was that she was not moving on, she was moving forward. There's a difference. Moving on implies erasure. Moving forward honors the past while making space for the present. Valerie learned that love does not replace love, it grows beside it. She could carry her history with Eddie, the laughter, the music, the complicated tenderness, and still open herself to something new. And that realization changed everything. With Mike, she rediscovered small joys, long walks, quiet mornings, shared jokes, conversations that stretched late into the night without needing to be captured in photographs or social posts. Their connection lived not in spectacle, but in presence. For someone who had spent so much of her life performing, that simplicity felt profound. Yet revealing this truth to the world required courage, because when you are a public figure, every private step becomes a topic of debate. Valerie knew that sharing her relationship, and more importantly, sharing her emotional truth, would invite opinions, commentary, assumptions, and speculation. But by this stage of her life, she had grown weary of living inside silence. She no longer wanted to hide behind carefully constructed narratives. She wanted to tell her story on her own terms. So when she finally spoke openly about her journey, about grief, about renewal, about finding unexpected companionship with Mike Goodnough, she didn't frame it as a fairy tale. She framed it as a human evolution. She talked about the loneliness that nearly swallowed her, the fear of starting again, the relief of discovering that vulnerability could coexist with strength. She spoke honestly, gently, without dramatics, because the truth did not need embellishment. Her admission was bold because it was honest. She revealed that healing is not a straight line, that it unfolds slowly through layers, conversations, reflections, setbacks, and awakenings. She revealed that love after loss is not a betrayal of the past, but an affirmation of life itself. She revealed that the most intimate truth she had learned was this: you are never too old, too broken, or too far gone to rediscover connection, whether with another person or with yourself. In sharing that truth, Valerie did something even more meaningful. She gave countless others permission to feel the same. Widows, divorcees, people who had loved deeply and lost deeply, people who believed their story had already ended. When they heard her speak, they did not hear a celebrity confession, they heard an echo of their own unspoken fears and dreams. They saw a woman who had walked through grief, through public scrutiny, through reinvention after reinvention, and still found the courage to say, "My life is not over, my heart is still capable of wonder." Mike Goodnough was not the headline of her story. He was part of the journey, a companion who entered her life at a moment when she was finally ready to accept tenderness without apology. Their connection represented something larger, the idea that love, in any form, at any age, does not arrive to rescue us, but to walk beside us as we rescue ourselves. And that's the greatest truth Valerie finally embraced. Not that she found a perfect ending, but that she found permission to live again, fully and authentically, without fear of judgment, to honor her past, cherish her present, and step into whatever future awaited her with an open, unguarded heart. Because in the end, the greatest truth she revealed was not about romance or celebrity or public image, it was about humanity, the quiet, universal longing to be seen, to be understood, and to be loved exactly as we are.